For years in Hollywood, Charlie Sheen was a name worse than Voldemort, a gifted actor who could have been one of the greats but whose career derailed under the weight of drugs, alcoholism and scandals. And yet, against the odds, he's making a quiet return, a comeback that no one saw coming. Charlie Sheen was never just another Hollywood star. Carlos Arwin Estevez grew up in the shadow of his father, Martin Sheen, an acting legend in his own right. But Charlie wasn't content to live in that shadow. By his early 20s, he was already carving out a name for himself, starring in films like Platoon, Wall Street, and Young Guns. Critics praised his natural charisma and intensity. He wasn't trying to be a leading man, he just was. But behind the scenes, the seeds of chaos were already being planted. Few people know that Charlie Sheen was expelled from high school just weeks before graduation due to poor grades and attendance. His plan B? There wasn't one. He went all in on acting, and for a while, it was working. In the 90s, Sheen's film career continued steadily, but the industry started to shift. Movie roles became less serious, and his public image became more entertaining than admirable. The shift hit a crescendo with 2.5 Men, the wildly successful CBS sitcom that turned Sheen into the highest paid actor on television. At the peak of his career, he was making nearly $2 million per episode, making him the highest paid actor on television. For a reference, in today's money, that's $2 million. And then the unraveling began. It all started early in his life, well before his major Hollywood fame. The tabloids had a field day. Drugs, sex scandals, rehab stints, and bizarre interviews. Who could forget the infamous Tiger Blood and Winning era? It wasn't just a media spectacle, it was the first ever tweaking out for real moment in his career. Memes were born. Talk shows ran nightly jokes, but behind the headlines was a man clearly in crisis. Watching back his most controversial interview, we can clearly see how cooked society is. Like, people were worried thinking he was on drugs while saying those things, but he was just ahead of his time. He was the OG shitposter, IRL brain rot connoisseur.
When was the last time you used? When was the last time you used? Are you on anything right now? Are you willing to take a drug test? You love to party. Tell me about the last time you took drugs.
He was capitalizing on his craze and turbulent life, playing into memes. This was to be expected since his acting persona and his real life started becoming one and the same. Charming, addicted bad boy with a dashing smile and a crazy best friend persona, but all of that had its price. For example, one of the lesser known truths about that period is that Sheen was also battling something far more serious, an HIV diagnosis. He kept it private for years, fearing backlash and exposure. When he finally made it public in 2015, it wasn't for attention, it was out of necessity. He was being blackmailed and extorted by people who knew his secret. "It's a hard 3 letters to absorb," he said at the time. "It's a turning point in one's life," and it was. After that announcement, Sheen largely disappeared from the spotlight. He took time away from acting, focusing on his health, his family, and rebuilding what he could of his fractured life. Hollywood, once enamored by his talent, had long since moved on. His reputation was too scorched, too toxic. But now, quietly and carefully, Charlie Sheen is making his return to film and television. In 2023, Sheen reunited with 2.5 Men creator Chuck Lorre for a new Max comedy series called How to Be a Bookie. It marked their first collaboration since the very public falling out over a decade ago. For many, it was a surprising olive branch, and perhaps a sign that the industry is beginning to look at Charlie Sheen differently. So, what changed? Part of it is time. A decade has passed since his most public controversies. The viral interviews, the lawsuits, the breakdowns, they're now the stuff of internet archives and later night reruns. More importantly, Sheen himself has changed. He's been sober for years, actively managing his health and keeping a low profile. Friends and insiders say he's more focused, more grounded, and more aware of the opportunities he squandered in the past. It also helps that the cultural climate has shifted. Audiences today are more willing to accept redemption stories, especially when they feel authentic. We've seen other stars make comebacks after personal turmoil: Robert Downey Jr., Matthew McConaughey, Brendan Fraser. Hollywood loves a resurrection, and Sheen's story has all the ingredients if he can keep it together. But there's another side of this comeback that most people haven't considered. Charlie Sheen never really lost his talent. What made him captivating in Platoon or Wall Street wasn't a fluke. Even in the later years of 2.5 Men, he was delivering comedic performances that very few actors could match. His timing, his presence, his effortless control of a scene, it never left. What did leave was the trust. Producers, directors, and networks couldn't rely on him, and that, more than anything else, is what tanked his career. This time around, Sheen seems to understand that. According to those who've worked with him recently, he shows up on time. He knows his lines, he treats people with respect. He's trying to rebuild that trust brick by brick, and while it may not catapult him back into superstardom, it's enough to open doors that were once firmly closed. Interestingly, Sheen has also expressed interest in more than just acting. He's written several scripts over the years, many of them never produced. Those closest to him believe he could eventually make the jump to directing or producing indie projects that speak to his experience. Who knows, maybe within the next few years we could see a movie directed by Charlie Sheen. Quietly, he's been supporting younger actors behind the scenes and even funding small creative ventures under the radar. And then there's his relationship with his father, Martin Sheen, a deeply complicated but enduring connection. Martin has always been both a supporter and a critic, holding his son accountable while also refusing to give up on him. Their bond, strained as it's been, remains one of the most consistent parts of Charlie's life. In recent interviews, Martin has said he's proud of the progress his son's made and hopeful about what's next. One project in particular that has fans curious is a rumored independent film Sheen is attached to, centered around addiction and recovery. It's not a comedy, it's not action-packed, it's personal. Perhaps painfully so. If it moves forward, it could be the most honest role Sheen has ever taken on, and in many ways, it would close the loop on a public narrative that has long been told without his full voice. Of course, the road ahead isn't guaranteed. There will always be skeptics. Some will never forgive, never forget. That's the cost of very public mistakes, but Sheen seems to know that. In fact, he's not asking for forgiveness anymore. He's just showing up, doing the work, staying quiet and staying focused. And maybe that's enough. Because at the heart of Charlie Sheen's story isn't just a rise and fall. It's a lesson about second chances. About the power of time, humility, and personal growth. He was once the highest paid actor on television, then he was a punchline. Now, he's something else entirely, a man trying to rebuild not just his career, but his identity. So, yes, Charlie Sheen is back, but more importantly, he's different. He changed for the better, and that might be the best role he's ever played. Congratulations, you've reached the end of the video. And hey, if you've made it this far, why not consider leaving a like and subscribing? It helps me out a lot. If you're feeling particularly generous, leave a comment to boost this video in the algorithm. Thank you. That's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!